Welcome back, everybody. Professor Robert Romano. As you know, you are my students. Welcome back to Sports Ethics and Social Justice. Today, we're going to be talking about an ethical issue regarding women in sports. So, what we're going to do is going to do an overview of women in sports, discrimination, and Title IX. Okay? So I'll give you a little background on Title IX. There's a reading posted regarding the history of Title IX. I would suggest you take a look at it. It's a brief summary of how the law has evolved over the last almost 50 years now. Okay, so women in sports. All right, this is a sports ethical issue. Prior to 1972, 1972 is the pivotal year here. So prior to 1972, 1 out of 27 young girls participated in sport. Okay, so 1 out of 27 young girls in high school age participated in sport. And this translated to roughly 300,000 young women participating in sports across the United States. All right, that's on average. That's not a lot. Okay, 1 out of 27, not a lot. All right, most of the reasons women were not involved in sport, well, think about it. Why do you think women weren't involved in sport? All right, what were the reasons behind it? Take a second, think about why weren't women involved in sport? I mean, what was against them? Why was there resistance in having women in sport? Well, there was this theory that women were not suited for or capable of competing athletically with or against men. Right? There is this theory out there. Right? It came about a long time ago, the Victorian age. If you take my sports history class, we'll have a whole class on this. That women are not suited for competition. They're not suited for athletic competition with or against men. All right, so therefore they should not be. No, they're not suited to be involved in sport. Women are frail and weak when it compared to men. I don't know about that one, but the theory being that women are frail and weak, and traditionally sports were for men. Why would women want to compete? Why would we want to promote women in sports? I mean, because sports is a guy's thing. Why would we want to have women involved? All right, they're too frail, they're too weak. They're not going to win. All right. So a lot of times there was no funding to support women in athletics. All right, because people didn't believe it. There was a traditions. There was this theory that women were weaker, inferior. So therefore, there was no funding to promote the sport. Right. Virtually no colleges before 1972 offered women sports scholarships. There were no scholarships for women. Not to say there were a few, but for the most part, there were no sports scholarships for women. Women were restricted to being a bystander. All right, and be the cheerleader, be the person on the side, encouraging the men to compete. All right, that was all the theory. This is how it was up until 1972. And it's true, if you think about it, there are anatomical differences between men and women. That's true. It's unarguable. But studies have shown that each have advantages and disadvantages, right? There are differences. There are strong points and there are weak points on both sides. I'm sorry. And now, as we thought about this, enlightened ourselves and became educated, it is undisputed that women can participate in competitive sports at the highest level. All right, it's undisputed. There are some fantastically talented and skilled women athletes out there that can put men to shame. All right, and vice versa. Right, so it's undisputed now. Right, even though we're different, there are advantages and disadvantages to both sexes. All right, so by 2008, fast forward, 1 out of 3 young women in secondary schools were participating in sport. A lot different from 1 in 27 now to 1 in 3, with over 3 million young women participating in sport at their high school level. All right, that's a big difference. All right, and why? Because why did this happen? What was the big change? What occurred? Title IX. All right, this federal legislation known as Title IX that was enacted in 1972. All right, basically Title IX says, and this probably be on the quiz, define the concept of Title IX. No person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any educational program or activity receiving financial assistance. There's a lot in that sentence, right? No person in the United States based on the basis of sex. Now this gets a little interesting. You know, I posted an article about transgender athletes. Take a read on that. Take a look at that. No person on the basis in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any educational program or activity, that means sport, that receive financial assistance. All right, so if you receive any financial assistance, any money from the federal government, you cannot discriminate against anyone. Okay? Prohibits federally funded institutions, educational programs, as long as they get some form of federal money. And public schools, they get federal money. All right? On the basis of gender or sex in any program. Okay? In a nutshell, prohibits federally funded educational programs from discriminating based on gender in any program that is offered by the school. Okay? Again, that receives federal funding, federally funded, that receives federal funding, right? That means colleges, right? Both public and private colleges, right? You think about this. Public universities, it kind of makes sense, right? They're receiving federal money, they're receiving tax dollars to have the school, you know, it's a public school, so it's receiving federal tax dollars to make it run. Private school is a little bit different, right? It's private. St. John's is a private institution. So why do we have to abide by this federal legislation? Well, because we get federally backed student loans. Okay? We get federally backed student loans. Students on our colleges get student loans, federal student loans. And because we get federal funding through the student loan program, therefore the Title IX kicks in. There are other ways that it kicks in also, but that's pretty much the big way. One thing we have to understand as sports executives that Title IX is for colleges, but it is also for high schools. It involves high schools, both public and private high schools, if that private institution is receiving some form of federal money. All right, so the Iona Preps, the Fairfield Preps, the Fordham Preps, all of they're receiving some form of federal money, then they have to abide by Title IX. Okay, so Title IX, not just for colleges, for high schools too. So if you become a high school athletic director or something involved with high school, you got to understand that, yes, you need to abide by the federal law. Okay, a lot of high schools don't. I brought a couple cases against high schools who do not follow Title IX. All right. And again, includes any program without limitations, and this includes athletic programs. All right, and this is the case of Cohen versus Brown University that said, yes, athletic programs are a program under federal protection through Title IX, okay? Because it says educational programs or activities. It's been expanded out to mean sports programs and athletic programs also. All right. So on that note, we have Title IX in place. Now you as a sports executive need to think about this. Wow, okay, we cannot allow our institution, whatever it is, a professional institution, college or high school, engage in any form of discrimination. All right. Number one, it's unethical. And number two, it's illegal. All right. So whatever you think, whatever your thoughts are, it's unethical and it's illegal. Gender discrimination is unethical and illegal. All right. And under the current rules, and this includes both contact and non-contact sports. All right, so in the sports context. So we cannot allow any discrimination since it's unethical and illegal in both contact and non-contact sports. Remember that when one team is available, both sexes must be allowed to try out and play for that team. Okay? So in both contact and non-contact sports, when there's only one team, let's say you have one hockey team, at your university or at your high school, only one team, well, both sexes must be allowed to try out and play on that team. If you have a female hockey team and a male hockey team, well, maybe that's a different story. But if you only have one team, one football team, one basketball team, one archery team, whatever it is, if you only have one team, both sexes need to be allowed to try out and play on that team. All right? It's unethical and illegal not to do it. In non-contact sports, when there is no women's team women are allowed to participate on the men's team. There's no question about it. All right, in non-contact sports, women are allowed to participate on the men's team. No questions. All right, in contact sports, now maybe saying, oh, this may be a little bit different. Maybe contact sports. Well, what do I mean by contact sports? All right, so contact sports, per most of the rulings out there, mean boxing, wrestling, rugby, ice hockey, football, basketball to some extent, and sometimes it even includes baseball and soccer. It pretty much covers everything, all right, except for archery and badminton. But contact sports, boxing, wrestling, rugby, ice hockey, football, basketball, and sometimes baseball and soccer. So what do we do about contact sports? If we only have one rugby team, do we allow women to be in the sport, all male sport? It's contact, right? It's rough, right? It's hard. Well, what do you think? Let's think about this for a little bit. Should women be allowed? Not allowed. That's a terrible way of putting it. Be included on contact sports teams when there is only one team at your university or your high school? Interesting question. Courts have been less apt to allow women to compete with men in contact sports. All right. But also it was said at the same time, you must maintain a separate women's team. So let's say if you have a contact sport, a men's ice hockey team, courts are saying, well, it's rough, whatever it is. So we need to have a women's team. Then that leads to another problem. That problem is, what if there's not enough athletes that want to play on that women's ice hockey team? What if we can't field a team? What if there's only one or two young women who are interested in playing ice hockey? Well, you can't field an ice hockey team with two people. Well, it's not a way out, right? Because you're going to catch 22 it is, right? Courts are saying, well, we're not really comfortable with allowing young women to compete with men because of the physicality of it all. So create a women's team so they can play. Well, if there's not enough women, what do you do? Just not allow these two women to play or these young women to play? It's an interesting question. All right, so the case that has come up about this was Mercer versus Duke. This is a young woman who was on the Duke football team. She was a kicker. She tried out for the team. She practiced with the team. She did really well on the team. Football is considered a contact sport. Come one day, the coach just told her she can't be on the team. Yep, that's it. Just set the rule. Women, you can't be on the team. Well, there's no version of a Duke women's football team. So what do you do? Right? And she knew she was better than some of the other kickers on the team. So it's like, well, why are you not allowing me to be on a team? Why are you cutting me from the team if there are kickers who are worse than I am? Why shouldn't I be allowed to play? And since there's no women's team, I'm left with nothing. And I'm the only, there are not enough female participants at Duke who want to start a team. The lower court ruled that female athletes can be left off the roster. They just ruled it, right? No, well, the Duke tried to accommodate. They tried to create a women's team. There just wasn't enough interest. So she's out of luck. Miss Mercer's out of luck, right? She can be left off the roster if the coach feels it. It's coach decision, right? They said this is not discrimination. It's contact sport. And since there's no comparable women's team, football team, well, sorry, she's out of luck. All right. I don't know if she was happy with that answer. She wasn't. She went to the appeals court. Appeals court overturned. They said, nope, to the lower court, this is discrimination, and female athletes must be allowed to participate. Okay? So you as a sports executive need to think about this. All right? If you're working at a university, you're working at a college, you're working in pros, you need to allow, if there's no comparable team, female team, women's team to a men's team, you need to allow women to compete on the men's team, even if it's a contact sport. All right? It's discrimination not to. All right, again, it doesn't matter if it's contact or non-contact sport. It's discrimination if you do not allow that female athlete to participate. And that's it. All right. Moving forward from this, discrimination in the sports business has been the norm historically. All right? You as a sports executive need to change this. All right, it's changing now, but you as a sports executive need to make sure that you change this. You need to provide professional development programs out there to encourage women to um, seek higher jobs in the hierarchy. All right, you need to educate the hierarchy to hire women who are fully qualified for these positions. All right, you need to be sensitive to the responsibilities of coaches and administrators when it comes to their families. All right, this means men and women. All right, I'm tired of when guys go to work and they can ignore their families, and that's okay. No, that's not acceptable. All right, it's not an acceptable thing to do. You need to be, as a sports executive, need professional development to make sure that all people are getting opportunities and getting educated on how to get those opportunities. And you need to be sensitive to the responsibilities that they have at home. You need to educate and enlighten. All right, you as the executive need to educate and enlighten, and make sure that everyone understands what is going on. One thing you need to be really cognizant of as a sports executive, and you need to be enlightened, educated, enlightened, and educate and enlighten others, is the concept of sexual harassment. All right, sexual harassment is a huge issue right now. Think about Michigan State, the doctor there who molested all the gymnast. That's just one example, but there's hundreds of examples out there. Sexual harassment is unwelcome sexual advances or requests for sexual favors or physical or verbal conduct. All right? So it can be any of these three. It's unwelcome advances, request, or physical or verbal conduct. All right? So sexual harassment could include intimidation of an athlete, selection on team dependent on compliance with implied sexual propositions. Right? Hazing. Hazing could be considered sexual harassment. A coach requesting sexual favors is a way to influence decision making. Right? You need to know about this, think about this, and understand what sexual harassment is and means, because it is illegal. All right, allowing sexual harassment to be prevalent on your college campus, on your university campus, within your sports organization is illegal. You cannot allow it to happen. All right, you cannot allow it to happen, and it can lead to criminal prosecution. People can go to jail. All right, you don't want to be that person going to jail, because I'm not going to visit you. All right, and in jail, all you can do is read books. Exactly. All right. So as sports executives, you need to put in place sexual harassment policies within your organization. All right? You need to make sure that you have strong policies in place within your organization, and make it clear that sexual harassment will not be tolerated in any manner, under any circumstances at your place. All right? Put the hammer down. Make it clear sexual harassment will not be tolerated in any manner in your workplace. All right? And that means you, too. You know what I mean? All right, so sexual harassment will not be tolerated in any manner. You as a sports executive need to put these policies in place. You need to strengthen them, and you need to enforce them and educate people on them without questions, because if not, it could lead to criminal prosecution, since sexual harassment in the workplace is illegal. We make it clear that consensual relationships between a coach and a student athlete are wrong, because they compromise the professional integrity of both the coach and harms without question the athlete. All right, so you even say, well, it was a consent. Student athlete is 22, she's fine, she's an adult. This is consensual. No, that's not how it works. All right, because it compromises the integrity and harms without question the athlete. The athlete may be saying, yeah, it's consensual, but they may not be understanding that they're being unduly influenced by that coach or be manipulated by that coach. So consensual within quotes. So make it clear that consensual relationships are not tolerated at your university or in your workplace. All right? We're adults, especially at the college and university level. Professional level, where the dynamics are equal, that's a different. You need to think about that and really get the facts on that. Could be a different situation. I don't know. All right, I'm not saying yes or no, but you really need to, as a sports executive, get to the bottom of it and find out if there's any disparity in hierarchy and there's undue influences and all that other stuff. But just know at the college level, oh, no, the student athlete is 22, so it's consensual. No, it's not. All right, can never be. It's without question harming the student athlete. All right. Hit the wrong button. All right. Because coaches are in a position of authority over an athlete, and the opportunities for exploitation are inherent within that relationship. Right? Coaches have a position of hierarchy or authority over an athlete, so they can exploit it. All right? There's no such thing as voluntary consent by a student athlete. There just isn't. And anybody that tells you differently, they're fooling themselves. All right? That power dynamic is just too much there. All right, so sexual harassment has severe consequences for that student athlete. It could lower their self-esteem. It impairs their functioning capacity to experience the full athletic experience. And it destroys an atmosphere of mutual respect and trust. Right? And then what the studies have shown that, down the road, victims are reluctant to accept employment or leadership roles in sport. Right, because of this, well, it was consensual. No, it wasn't. It led to this power dynamic that makes it hard to break out of. Right, lowers a person's self-esteem. You fail to trust people. You don't respect people, and if you don't trust and respect, or you have lower self-esteem, you're not going to go after those leadership roles, and that's not what we want in sport. All right, so because of these consequences, sports executives, you guys need to be responsible for oversight of coaches and your athletic programs. You need to take these issues seriously, educate and address all issues of sexual harassment that may occur. Okay, educate yourself and address all issues of sexual harassment that may occur. There's going to be some. You need to investigate, address them, and deal with them. Don't push them under the rug. Don't think, oh no, this will go away. No. You need to address all the issues. Educate everybody and address all issues on sexual harassment that may occur. All right. Abuse and violence against women. Another issue that goes along with sexual harassment. Abuse in any form harms and prevents women and girls, I don't want to use that word, young females, from participating and developing as both athletes and individuals. All right. Any form of abuse, sexual harassment being included, harms and prevents women and young women from participating and developing as both athletes and individuals. It can cause psychological damage and keep them from ever participating in sport. And this is not what we want in sport, right? We want participants. We want people to be engaged. We want people to be active, right? So any form of abuse can hurt this, damage this, and lead to lack of participation. Forms of abuse. What we talked about: sexual abuse and harassment, mental abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, unreasonable confinement, and excessive punishment. Right? All these are forms of abuse. You cannot allow this to happen in your workplace. You cannot allow it to happen on your college campus. All right. You need to have a abuse-free and violence-free atmosphere so everybody can feel comfortable, so everyone can meet their potential. All right. It's a lot to think about. All right, so think about it. All right, you need, as a sports executive, you are leaders. You are the ones who put the policies and rules and regulations in place, and you need to make sure that those rules are clear, strong, and everyone knows these rules and educate everybody about them. All right, you want a safe, abuse-free workplace when you're out there. Okay. Think of questions. We'll have a Zoom class on Friday, so think of your questions about these issues. And anything in interim, always feel free to give me a call. All right. Thank you.